What happened next would change everything. Noah thought he knew about justice, love, and the strangers we meet when we're at our lowest point. If you believe kindness should always win in the end, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's see just how far one small act of compassion can go. Noah Martinez had been running on 3 hours of sleep for the past 6 months, and it showed in every line etched around his 28-year-old eyes. The fluorescent lights of Belmont's fine dining cast harsh shadows across his face as he tied his black apron for what would unknowingly be the last time. His phone buzzed against his chest. Another text from the hospital about his 7-year-old son Micah's mounting medical bills. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Doesn't care if you're working double shifts or if your ex-wife cleaned out your savings account before disappearing into the night 2 years ago. The restaurant's marble floors gleamed under the crystal chandeliers, a stark contrast to the crumbling apartment complex where Noah tucked Micah into bed each night, promising that Daddy would find a way to pay for the treatments that were keeping his little boy alive. Every table Noah served represented another day of medicine, another night with his son. He couldn't afford to lose this job, not when Micah's next chemotherapy session was scheduled for Friday, and the insurance had already denied coverage twice. Mr. Kane, the restaurant's owner, moved through the dining room like a predator surveying his territory. At 55, Richard Kane had built his empire on the belief that compassion was weakness, and that the desperate made the best employees. They never asked questions, never demanded more, never fought back. His cold grey eyes missed nothing, especially not the way Noah's hands trembled slightly as he balanced 3 plates of $60 entrees. Kane knew about the sick kid, about the medical bills, about the desperation that kept Noah working 16-hour days without complaint. It was exactly how he liked his staff, broken and grateful. The evening rush was in full swing when Eva Martinez shuffled through the restaurant's glass doors. Her clothes hung loose on her thin frame, layers of worn fabric that couldn't quite hide the sharp intelligence in her dark eyes. Her graying hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she carried a small backpack that looked like it contained everything she owned. The hostess, Jessica, took one look at Eva and stepped forward with the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "Excuse me, ma'am, but I don't think this is the right place for you. There's a soup kitchen about 6 blocks down." "I have money," Eva said quietly, pulling a crumpled $20 bill from her pocket. "I'd like to sit down and order some food, please." The dining room fell silent. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as the restaurant's wealthy clientele turned to stare. These were people who paid $300 for wine and complained when their truffle pasta wasn't exactly the right temperature. They weren't used to sharing their space with someone who looked like she'd been sleeping in doorways. Noah watched from across the room, his heart sinking as he recognized the look in Eva's eyes, the same defeated hope he'd seen in his own reflection when he'd begged the hospital billing department for another payment extension. He'd been homeless once, right after Ashley left, sleeping in his car with infant Micah bundled in blankets, until he'd scraped together enough for their tiny apartment. He knew what it felt like to be looked at like you didn't deserve to exist in the same space as everyone else. Kane materialized beside the hostess like a shark drawn to blood. His voice was calm, professional, but Noah could hear the venom underneath. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This is a private establishment, and we reserve the right to refuse service." "But I have money," Eva repeated, holding up the 20 again. Her voice was stronger now, tinged with something that might have been anger or might have been desperation. "I just want to buy a meal." "The lady said she has money." Noah's voice cut through the tension before he'd even realized he was speaking. He walked over, his server's tray forgotten on a nearby table. "She's not causing any trouble. She just wants to eat." Kane's face darkened. "Noah, get back to your section. This doesn't concern you. But Noah was already pulling out a chair at the table closest to the door, the one usually reserved for waiting customers. His hands were steady now, steadier than they'd been all day. "Ma'am, would you like to sit down? I can bring you a menu." The restaurant erupted in murmurs. A woman at table 12 audibly gasped. A man in a $3,000 suit called for his check, loudly announcing that he wouldn't be returning to an establishment that couldn't maintain proper standards. But Noah didn't hear any of it. He was looking at Eva, seeing the way her shoulders relaxed slightly, the way she clutched her backpack a little less tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, and there was something in her voice that made Noah think of his own mother, who'd cleaned office buildings at night to keep food on their table when he was growing up. Kane's face had gone from dark to thunderous. "Noah, step away from that table. Now." "She's not hurting anyone," Noah said, turning to face his boss. "She has money. She wants to buy food. Isn't that what restaurants are for? This is a high-end establishment. We have a reputation to maintain, standards to uphold." Kane's voice was getting louder, drawing more attention from the dining room. "I will not have people like her driving away our clientele. People like her." The words hung in the air like a slap. Noah felt something hot and angry unfurl in his chest. The same feeling he'd had when Ashley told him she couldn't handle being married to someone who would never amount to anything. The same rage that had sustained him through every double shift and every sleepless night. "People like her," Noah repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "You mean hungry people? People who've fallen on hard times? People who deserve to be treated with basic human dignity?" Eva had gone very still, watching the confrontation with wide eyes. She started to stand. "It's okay, I'll..." Noah's hand gently touched her shoulder, urging her back into the chair. "You're not going anywhere. You came here to eat, and that's exactly what you're going to do." He turned back to Kane, and every hour of exhaustion, every medical bill, every night of wondering how he was going to keep his son alive, crystallized into perfect clarity. "I'll pay for her meal myself." The dining room had gone completely silent now. Even the kitchen staff had emerged to watch the confrontation unfold. Kane's face was purple with rage, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "You're fired," he said, each word dripping with venom. "Clean out your locker and get out. And take her with you." Noah felt the bottom drop out of his world. Without this job, there would be no money for Micah's treatments, no rent, no car payment, no nothing. But looking at Eva, seeing the way she'd started to cry silently, seeing the entire dining room staring at her like she was something dirty they'd stepped in, he knew he couldn't have done anything differently. "Fine," he said, untying his apron with hands that barely shook. "But first, I'm going to make sure this lady gets fed." He walked into the kitchen, ignoring Kane's shouts behind him, and came back with a plate of the restaurant's famous herb-crusted salmon, garlic mashed potatoes, and seasonal vegetables. He set it down in front of Eva, along with silverware wrapped in a crisp linen napkin. "On the house," he said quietly. "Take your time." Eva looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for me?" Noah thought about Micah, small and brave in his hospital bed, asking Noah why some people were mean to other people just because they looked different, or didn't have as much money. He thought about his own nights, sleeping in the car, wondering if things would ever get better, if anyone would ever see him as more than just another person who'd failed at life. "Because everyone deserves to be treated like they matter," he said simply. "Because kindness shouldn't cost extra." Kane was screaming now, threatening to call the police, but Noah barely heard him. He gathered his things from his locker, a picture of Micah, his extra uniform shirt, a get-well card his son had made him covered in crayon drawings of superheroes. When he walked back through the dining room, Eva was still eating slowly, savoring every bite. She looked up as he passed. "Thank you," she said again, and Noah nodded, not trusting himself to speak. As he pushed through the restaurant's glass doors into the cool evening air, he heard Kane still ranting about standards and reputation, but he also heard something else, the quiet sounds of Eva finishing her meal in peace, surrounded by the silence of a dining room that had witnessed something they'd probably never forget. Noah sat in his 15-year-old Honda Civic in the parking lot for a long time, staring at his phone screen. He had $37 in his checking account, $12 in cash, and a son who needed medicine that cost more than Noah made in 3 months. His next shift was supposed to start in 10 hours, but there would be no next shift, no paycheck on Friday, no insurance coverage, even the minimal plan the restaurant had provided. He thought about calling his sister in Phoenix, but Maria had her own family to worry about, her own bills to pay. He thought about calling his ex-wife, but Ashley had made it clear that Noah and his problems were no longer her concern. She'd gotten remarried to some corporate executive, posting pictures on social media of their perfect life in their perfect house, while Noah struggled to keep their son fed and medicated. When he finally drove home to their cramped apartment, Micah was asleep on the couch, his small body curled up under the worn Batman blanket Noah had bought him for his 6th birthday. Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor who watched Micah when Noah worked late, was sitting in the kitchen, her face creased with worry. "How is he?" Noah asked quietly. "He had a good day, ate all his dinner, did his homework." "But Noah," she hesitated, her weathered hands folding and unfolding in her lap. "He asked me when his next doctor appointment is. He knows Friday is coming." Noah closed his eyes. Micah never complained, never cried, never asked why other kids got to run and play while he spent his days getting chemicals pumped into his small body. He just accepted it all with the kind of quiet bravery that broke Noah's heart every single day. "Mrs. Chen, I need to tell you something. I lost my job tonight." The old woman's face crumpled. She'd been a mother once, had raised 4 children and buried a husband, had seen enough of life to understand exactly what Noah's words meant for a single father with a sick child. "What will you do?" she whispered. "I don't know," Noah admitted. "But I'll figure something out. I always do." But as he carried Micah to bed, feeling how light his son had become over the past months, Noah wondered if this was the time he wouldn't be able to figure it out. If this was the moment when all his determination and love and desperate hope finally wouldn't be enough. Micah stirred as Noah tucked him in, his dark eyes opening in the dim light from the hallway. "Dad, are you okay? You look sad." Noah forced a smile. "I'm fine, buddy. Just tired." "How are you feeling?" "Better. Mrs. Chen made me soup, and I watched cartoons. Are we still going to see Dr. Martinez on Friday?" Dr. Martinez, the oncologist who'd been treating Micah for 2 years, who'd explained the treatment protocols in words Noah could understand, who never looked at them with pity when Noah had to ask about payment plans and assistance programs. Friday's appointment was crucial. They'd find out if the latest round of chemotherapy was working, if Micah's white blood cell count was improving, if there was reason to hope. "Of course we are," Noah said, kissing his son's forehead. "Nothing's going to stop us from seeing Dr. Martinez." But as he sat in his own bed, an hour later, staring at the stack of medical bills on his nightstand, Noah wasn't sure how he was going to keep that promise. The appointment alone would cost $300. The blood work would be another $200. If they needed to adjust Micah's medications or start a new treatment protocol, they were looking at thousands more. He thought about Eva, wondering where she was sleeping tonight, wondering if the meal he'd served her had been her first real food in days. There was something about her that stuck with him, something beyond the obvious need for kindness, the way she'd held herself, the intelligence in her eyes, the careful way she'd spoken, as if she was used to being listened to, used to being respected. Life had a way of crushing people, of taking successful, confident individuals and grinding them down until they became invisible on city streets. But he'd done the right thing, even if it cost him everything, even if it meant he couldn't afford Micah's treatments, even if it meant they ended up homeless themselves. He'd done the right thing. He had to believe that mattered somehow, that kindness wasn't just a luxury for people who could afford it. Sleep, when it finally came, was filled with dreams of hospital bills and eviction notices, of Micah asking questions Noah couldn't answer, and doors that kept slamming shut, no matter how hard he knocked. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of desperation and increasingly desperate measures. Noah applied for every job he could find, dishwasher positions, delivery driver gigs, anything that might provide immediate income. But without references from his last job, with Cain spreading word through the restaurant community that Noah was a troublemaker who couldn't follow basic protocols, the rejections piled up like snow. His landlord, Mr. Peterson, was patient at first. Peterson had a sick grandchild too, understood the impossible choices parents sometimes had to make. But patience had limits, and 3 weeks without rent meant eviction notices and court dates, and the very real possibility of putting Micah through homelessness on top of everything else. The final blow came on a Thursday morning. Noah was walking back from another failed job interview when he saw the furniture on the sidewalk. His furniture, Micah's furniture, their entire life packed into garbage bags and cardboard boxes. Mrs. Chen was standing beside their belongings, holding Micah's hand and crying openly. "I'm sorry," Peterson said, unable to meet Noah's eyes. "I held off as long as I could, but the management company is threatening to evict me too, if I don't follow the lease agreements. You're good people, Noah. This isn't right." Micah stood very still, taking in the sight of their home scattered across the sidewalk. His Batman blanket was draped over a box marked kitchen stuff, in Noah's handwriting. His medication was in a small cooler that Mrs. Chen had been guarding like a treasure. "Where are we going to live now, Dad?" Micah asked quietly. Noah knelt down, taking his son's small hands in his own. "We're going to figure it out, okay? We always figure it out. Maybe we'll have an adventure for a while." An adventure. That's what Noah called it when they loaded their most essential belongings into the Honda and drove to the Walmart parking lot where Noah had heard other families sometimes spent the night. An adventure, as if sleeping in a car with a 7-year-old cancer patient was somehow exciting instead of heartbreaking. They made a nest in the back seat with pillows and blankets. Noah had packed Micah's medications in a small cooler, along with enough food for a few days. He'd kept his phone charger, his laptop, and the folder containing all of Micah's medical records. Everything else, furniture, clothes, the life they'd built in their tiny apartment, was gone. "This is kind of like camping," Micah said, trying to sound brave as he arranged his stuffed animals around him. "Except we're in a car instead of a tent." "Exactly like camping," Noah agreed, his voice thick. "And tomorrow we'll figure out our next step." But tomorrow brought more rejections, more closed doors, more nights in parking lots and rest stops. Micah's next appointment was in 3 days, and Noah still didn't have the money to pay for it. Worse, he'd started to notice that Micah was getting tired more easily, sleeping more during the day, picking at his food instead of eating. It was during their second week of homelessness that Ashley reappeared. Noah was sitting in the car outside the public library, where they went during the day, so Micah could use the computers for his online school assignments, and Noah could job hunt on the free Wi-Fi. His phone rang, and Ashley's name appeared on the screen. The first time she'd called in 8 months. "Noah, it's me." Her voice was different, smoother somehow, polished in a way it hadn't been when they were married. Noah had seen her social media posts, knew about the big house and the new husband and the charity galas where she posed in designer dresses. What do you want, Ashley? I heard about Micah, about the situation you're in right now. Situation. As if their homelessness was a minor inconvenience instead of a daily nightmare. How did you hear? Does it matter? The point is, I'm worried about our son. He needs stability, Noah. He needs proper medical care and a safe place to live. Things you obviously can't provide right now. Noah's hand tightened on the phone. Through the library window he could see Micah at one of the children's computers, concentrating on his math homework with the kind of focus that made Noah's chest swell with pride, even in the middle of disaster. What are you saying, Ashley? I'm saying maybe it's time to reconsider our custody arrangement. Marcus and I have plenty of room, excellent insurance, connections to the best pediatric oncologists in the state. Micah could have his own room, his own bathroom, everything he needs to get better. Marcus. The investment banker husband with the perfect smile and the perfect life, who'd never changed a diaper or stayed up all night with a sick child. You left us, Ashley. You walked away when things got hard. I was young. I was scared. I made mistakes. Her voice took on the practiced cadence of someone who'd rehearsed this conversation. But I'm in a position to help now, to give Micah opportunities you can't provide. Opportunities, medical care, stability, all the things Noah desperately wanted to give his son but couldn't afford. But he also remembered Ashley's reasons for leaving, how she'd called Noah's dreams small, his ambitions limited, his love suffocating, how she'd taken their savings and left a note saying she needed to find herself, needed to be more than just a young mother tied down to a life she never wanted. You don't get to show up now and play mom when it's convenient, Noah said quietly. You don't get to take him just because I'm going through a rough patch. A rough patch? Ashley's composure cracked slightly. Noah, you're homeless. You're living in your car with a critically ill child. This isn't a rough patch. This is child endangerment. The words hit like a physical blow. Child endangerment. He thought about Micah sleeping in the back seat, eating granola bars for breakfast, missing school days when Noah couldn't afford the gas to drive to the library. Was he hurting his son by trying to keep them together? Was his pride more important than Micah's well-being? I need to think about it, he said finally. Don't think too long, Ashley replied. I've already spoken to a lawyer. If necessary, I'll file for emergency custody. But I'd rather we work this out between ourselves, for Micah's sake. She hung up, leaving Noah staring at his phone in the parking lot of a public library, wondering if loving his son meant letting him go. That night, in a rest stop outside the city, Noah watched Micah sleep and tried to imagine life without him. No more bedtime stories, no more crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator they no longer had. No more small hands slipping into his when they crossed streets or faced something scary together. But also no more nights wondering if he was failing as a father. No more watching his son get sicker while being unable to afford proper treatment. No more guilt about the life Micah deserved versus the life Noah could provide. He was still wrestling with the decision when he noticed the woman. She was sitting at a picnic table near the edge of the rest stop, mostly hidden in shadows, but something about her posture was familiar. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, Noah realized it was Eva, the homeless woman he'd served at the restaurant nearly a month ago. She looked different somehow, cleaner, though she was still wearing layers of worn clothing. But her backpack was newer, and she had a small camping lantern that cast a warm circle of light around the table where she sat reading what looked like a newspaper. Noah debated whether to approach her. Their last encounter had cost him his job, his apartment, his entire life. But there was something comforting about seeing a familiar face, even under these circumstances. Someone else who understood what it was like to be invisible, to exist on the margins of a world that preferred to pretend people like them didn't exist. He grabbed his jacket and walked over, careful not to wake Micah. Eva, she looked up, and her face broke into a smile that transformed her entirely. "Noah, I was hoping I'd see you again." "You were hoping?" He sat down across from her, confused. "How did you know I'd be here?" "Lucky guess," she said, folding the newspaper. "How are you holding up?" The simple question, asked with genuine concern, nearly broke him. When was the last time someone had asked how he was doing and actually waited for an answer? "I've been better," he admitted. "Lost my job, lost my apartment. My son and I are living in the car right now." "Your son is sick," she said. It wasn't a question. Noah nodded. Surprised, she remembered. "Leukemia. He needs treatments I can't afford. And now his mother wants to take him away. Says I can't provide for him properly." Eva was quiet for a long moment, her dark eyes studying his face in the lantern light. "What do you think?" "I think she might be right," Noah said, the words tearing at his throat. "I think maybe loving him means letting him go to someone who can actually take care of him." "And what does your son think?" Noah thought about Micah's face when Ashley had first left, how he'd waited by the window every day for months, asking when Mommy was coming home. How he'd eventually stopped asking, stopped waiting, started saying that he and Daddy were a team, and they didn't need anyone else. "He wants to stay with me. But he's 7 years old. He doesn't understand the reality of our situation." "Maybe he understands more than you think," Eva said gently. "Children see things differently than adults. They see love where we see financial statements. They see security where we see uncertainty. Love doesn't pay medical bills." "No," Eva agreed. "But love matters. It matters more than you might think." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the distant hum of highway traffic. Finally, Eva reached into her backpack and pulled out a thermos. "Tea," she offered. It was good tea, better than Noah would have expected from someone living on the streets. They drank it slowly, two people who'd found themselves in impossible circumstances, finding small comfort in shared warmth and understanding. "Can I ask you something?" Noah said eventually. "That night at the restaurant, why were you really there? I mean, $20 doesn't go far at a place like Belmont's." Eva smiled, but there was something sad in her expression. "Sometimes you need to test whether there's any kindness left in the world, whether there are still people who see others as human beings instead of problems to be solved or obstacles to be removed. And you passed the test," she said simply. "You saw me as someone who deserved dignity, even when it cost you everything." "It did cost me everything," Noah said, but there was no bitterness in his voice. "I'd do it again, though, no matter what happened after." Eva nodded as if she'd expected that answer. "That's what I thought. That's what I hoped." She reached into her backpack again and pulled out an envelope. "I have something for you." Noah stared at the envelope without taking it. "Eva, if this is money, I can't." "It's not money," she said. "Not exactly. It's an opportunity. But you have to promise me something first." "What?" "Promise me you won't give up on your son. Promise me you'll fight for him, no matter what anyone else says about what's best." "Eva, promise me." There was something in her voice, an urgency that made Noah look at her more carefully. In the lantern light, he could see details he'd missed before. The quality of her clothing, worn but well made, the way she held herself straight and confident, despite their surroundings, the intelligence in her eyes that suggested someone accustomed to being listened to, respected, obeyed. "I promise," he said finally. She handed him the envelope. Inside was a business card and a handwritten note. The business card was simple, elegant. Eva Martinez, CEO, Martinez Industries. Below that was a phone number and an address in the city's financial district. Noah stared at the card, then at Eva, then back at the card. "I don't understand." "The note explains everything," she said. "But don't read it now. Read it tomorrow morning, after you've had time to think about what I told you, about fighting for your son. Eva, who are you? She stood up, packing her thermos and lantern with practiced efficiency. I'm someone who needed to remember that there are still good people in the world. Someone who needed to be reminded that kindness and integrity haven't completely disappeared. Wait, Noah started to stand, but she held up a hand. Read the note tomorrow. And Noah, when they try to take your son away, remember that love is worth fighting for. That being a good father isn't about how much money you have in the bank. She disappeared into the darkness, leaving Noah alone with the envelope and 1,000 questions. He sat there for another hour, turning the business card over in his hands, trying to reconcile the homeless woman he'd served at the restaurant with the CEO listed on the card. Finally, he went back to the car, where Micah was still sleeping peacefully, his small face relaxed in a way it rarely was during waking hours. Noah tucked the envelope into the glove compartment and tried to sleep, but his mind kept spinning with possibilities and fears in equal measure. The next morning brought a text from Ashley's lawyer. The custody hearing was scheduled for Monday, 3 days away. Noah would need to appear in court, would need to prove that he could provide a stable home for his son, despite their current circumstances. He would need to convince a judge that love was enough, that Micah belonged with his father instead of with the stepfather who could offer everything Noah couldn't. It was then that he remembered Eva's envelope. He opened it in the parking lot of a McDonald's where he'd bought Micah breakfast with their last $10, his hands shaking slightly as he unfolded the handwritten note. Noah, it began in neat, precise handwriting. By now you've figured out that I'm not who I appeared to be that night at the restaurant. My name is Eva Martinez, and I'm the CEO of Martinez Industries, a technology company worth approximately $2.3 billion. I was at Belmont's that night because I'd been testing various establishments in the city, trying to find business owners and employees who still believed in treating all people with dignity and respect. I'd been disappointed 19 times before I walked into that restaurant. You cost yourself everything to defend a stranger. You gave up your job, your security, your future, because you believed that everyone deserves to be treated with kindness. That kind of integrity is rare, and it's exactly what I've been looking for. I want to offer you a position with my company, not out of charity, but because someone with your character is exactly the kind of person I need on my team. The salary is $150,000 annually, with full medical benefits that will cover your son's treatments completely. There's also a signing bonus of $50,000 to help you get back on your feet. More importantly, I want to help you fight for your son. I've already retained the services of Rebecca Chen, one of the best family lawyers in the state, to represent you in the custody hearing. She's expecting your call. I know this seems impossible, like something that doesn't happen in real life, but sometimes the universe rewards good people, Noah. Sometimes kindness does win. Call me. Let me help you the way you helped me. With respect and gratitude, Eva Martinez. P.S. I've been watching you these past few weeks, making sure you and Micah were safe. You're an extraordinary father, and your son is lucky to have you. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Noah read the letter 3 times before the words fully sank in. CEO, $2.3 billion, $150,000 salary, full medical benefits. A lawyer, help. The business card felt surreal in his hands, but the phone number was real enough. He dialed it with trembling fingers. He looked through the McDonald's window at Micah, who was carefully eating his Egg McMuffin and working on homework at a corner table, completely unaware that their entire world might be about to change. Eva Martinez's office. This is Jennifer speaking. Hi. My name is Noah Martinez. Eva asked me to call. Mr. Martinez. Yes, she's been expecting your call. Please hold while I transfer you. Elevator music filled his ear for 30 seconds before Eva's voice came on the line, warm and professional, and completely different from the homeless woman he'd met at rest stops and restaurants.
Noah, I'm so glad you called. I hope you're not too shocked.
I'm pretty shocked, he admitted. Eva, why didn't you tell me who you were? Because then you would have treated me differently. You would have seen a CEO instead of a human being who needed help. Your kindness wouldn't have been real. It would have been calculated, strategic. I needed to know who you really were, not who you might pretend to be for someone with money and influence. You're someone who believes that everyone deserves dignity. Someone who's willing to sacrifice everything for what's right. Someone who loves his son enough to sleep in a car, but also loves him enough to consider giving him up if that's what's best for him. Her voice softened. You're exactly the kind of person I want to work with, Noah. The kind of person I want to learn from. And who am I, according to you? Learn from me? You're a billionaire CEO. On the day of the court hearing, Eva pulled up with 4 matte black Cybertrucks. With her were Noah, Micah, and the family's most ruthless lawyer. The moment they stepped out, the entire courtroom froze. Journalists, paparazzi, even the judge. No one saw this kind of entrance coming. The custody hearing was scheduled for Monday morning at 9 a.m. Noah spent the weekend in a hotel room that Eva's company had paid for, wearing clothes that actually fit him, watching Micah play with toys they'd bought at Target with the emergency cash advance Eva had arranged. It felt surreal, like playing house in someone else's life. And you're a man who gave up everything to feed a stranger. Which one of us has their priorities straight? But what about the homelessness? The fact that I lost my job? Rebecca Chen, the lawyer Eva had hired, was everything Noah had hoped for, and more. She was sharp, thorough, and genuinely outraged by Ashley's attempt to use Noah's temporary homelessness against him. She abandoned you and your son 2 years ago, Rebecca said during their preparation meeting. She's had minimal contact since then, no financial support, no involvement in medical decisions. The fact that she's suddenly interested in custody now that she's remarried to someone wealthy is going to look very suspicious to the judge. We're going to address that head on. You lost your job because you stood up for someone who was being mistreated. That shows character, not irresponsibility, and your housing situation is already resolved. You start work tomorrow, and Eva's company has arranged corporate housing until you can find a permanent place. Monday morning arrived grey and drizzly, matching Noah's mood as he walked into the courthouse wearing a suit. Eva had bought him, holding Micah's hand tightly. Ashley was already there with Marcus and their lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive outfit that probably cost more than Noah had made in a month at the restaurant. Ashley looked good, polished, successful, like someone who had her life together. She was wearing a soft blue dress that made her look maternal and responsible, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her makeup subtle but flawless. When she saw Micah, her face lit up with what looked like genuine joy. "Baby," she called, opening her arms. Micah looked up at Noah uncertainly, then walked slowly over to his mother. Ashley swept him into a hug that looked perfect for the cameras. Noah suspected weren't there. "You look so thin," she murmured loud enough for everyone to hear. "Have you been eating enough? Are you taking your medicine?" "I'm okay, Mum," Micah said quietly. "Dad takes good care of me." "I want to stay with Dad," Micah said, his small voice carrying clearly through the hallway. "I know he tries, sweetheart. But maybe it's time for you to come live with Marcus and me for a while. We have a big house with a pool, and there's a great school district, and the best doctors." Ashley's perfect composure flickered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. "We'll see what the judge thinks is best, okay?" The hearing began with Ashley's lawyer painting a picture of Noah as a well-meaning but ultimately unstable father who couldn't provide for his son's needs. She detailed his recent homelessness, his job loss, his inability to afford medical treatments. She presented Ashley as the reformed mother who'd made mistakes, but was now in a position to offer Micah everything Noah couldn't: stability, medical care, educational opportunities, a future. Rebecca listened to it all with the patience of someone who'd heard these arguments before and knew exactly how to dismantle them piece by piece. Your Honor, opposing counsel would have you believe that temporary financial hardship makes someone an unfit parent. But let's examine the facts. Mr. Noah Martinez lost his job because he defended a vulnerable person from discrimination. He became homeless not through addiction, criminal behavior, or negligence, but because he chose human dignity over his own security. When it was Rebecca's turn, she stood up with the quiet confidence of someone who held all the winning cards. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I have here testimony from Mrs. Chen, Mr. Martinez's neighbor, detailing his dedication to his son's care. Medical records showing that despite financial constraints, Micah has never missed a treatment, never gone without medication. School records showing that even while homeless, Mr. Martinez ensured his son continued his education. Rebecca turned to address Ashley directly. Miss Williams, excuse me, Mrs. Garrett, now abandoned her family 2 years ago. She has provided no financial support, made no effort to maintain regular contact, and showed no interest in Micah's welfare until she remarried into wealth. This isn't about what's best for the child. This is about a woman who wants to play mother now that it's convenient. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s with kind eyes, looked at Ashley. Mrs. Garrett, can you explain your absence from your son's life for the past 2 years? Ashley's composure cracked slightly. I was young, Your Honor. I needed time to figure out who I was, to build a stable life that I could offer my son. That's a no then. Did you maintain regular contact? Visit him in the hospital during his treatments? During this time of self-discovery, did you provide any financial support for your son's medical treatments? I was building my career, establishing myself. Judge Williams looked at Micah, who had been sitting quietly between his parents. Young man, would you like to tell me what you think about all this? Ashley's lawyer whispered something in her ear, but Ashley shook her head. I thought it would be better for him to have stability, not to be confused by my presence when I couldn't offer him a permanent home yet. Micah looked at Noah, who nodded encouragingly. The 7-year-old stood up, small but dignified in his best shirt and tie. The courtroom was silent, except for the soft sound of Ashley crying. Even her lawyer looked uncomfortable. Your Honor, my dad never left me. When I was really sick and had to stay in the hospital for weeks, he slept in the chair next to my bed every night. When I was scared about the treatments, he told me stories about superheroes who were brave even when they were scared. When we didn't have a house, he made it feel like an adventure so I wouldn't be worried. Micah's voice was steady, but Noah could see his small hands trembling slightly. My mom left us when I got sick. She said she couldn't handle it. But my dad never left, not even when things got really hard. He's the best dad in the world, and I want to stay with him. Judge Williams made her decision quickly. Mrs. Garrett, while I don't doubt that you love your son and want what's best for him, actions speak louder than words. Mr. Martinez has been the consistent, loving presence in this child's life through the most difficult circumstances imaginable. Temporary financial hardship does not constitute grounds for removing a child from a loving, stable parent. She looked at Noah. Mr. Martinez, I understand your employment situation has recently improved. Yes, Your Honor. I start a new position today with full medical benefits that will cover all of Micah's treatments. Then custody remains with the father. Mrs. Garrett, you're welcome to reasonable visitation if both father and son agree, but I will not disrupt this child's life for the sake of your convenience. The gavel came down, and Noah felt like he could breathe for the first time in weeks. Micah ran to him, throwing his small arms around his waist, and Noah lifted him up, holding him tight. "We did it, buddy," he whispered. "We're staying together." Ashley approached them as they were leaving the courthouse, her perfect composure completely gone. She looked smaller somehow, more human. "Noah, I'm sorry," she said quietly. I thought I was doing the right thing." "You were doing what was easy," Noah replied, but there was no anger in his voice anymore. "Taking care of a sick child isn't easy, Ashley. It's the hardest thing in the world, but he's worth it." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Can I see him sometimes? I know I don't deserve it, but I want to try to be better." Noah looked at Micah, who considered the question with the seriousness of a much older child. "Maybe," Micah said finally, "but you can't leave again. If you're going to be my mom, you have to stay, even when things are hard." "I promise," Ashley whispered. "I promise I'll try." That afternoon, Noah reported to his first day at Martinez Industries. The building was a gleaming tower of glass and steel in the heart of the financial district, the kind of place he'd only seen in movies. Eva met him in the lobby, looking every inch the successful CEO in her tailored suit and confident smile. "Ready for your new life?" she asked. "I think so," Noah replied. "Eva, I still can't believe this is real." "Why me?" "Because character matters more than credentials," she said simply. "Because I'd rather work with someone who does the right thing than someone who does the profitable thing. Because you remind me that there are still good people in the world." She led him to the elevator, and as they rose toward the executive floors, she continued, "I built this company after my own experience with homelessness 15 years ago. I know what it's like to be invisible, to be judged by your circumstances rather than your character. I've been successful, but success means nothing if you don't use it to make the world a little better." "What's my job going to be?" "Head of Community Relations and Ethics. You'll be working with other companies to develop programs that treat all people with dignity, regardless of their circumstances. You'll be training staff on compassion and inclusion. You'll be making sure that what happened to you at Belmont's doesn't happen to anyone else." Noah's new office had a window overlooking the city, a desk bigger than his old apartment's living room, and a photo of Micah that Eva had thoughtfully placed on the bookshelf. But the best part was the comprehensive health insurance packet that guaranteed Micah would receive the best possible care without any financial burden on their family. 6 months later, Noah stood on the stage at the annual Martinez Industries charity gala, looking out at an audience of business leaders, community activists, and philanthropists. Micah sat in the front row, healthy and happy, his latest test results showing that he was in complete remission. "A year ago, I was fired from my job for treating a homeless woman with basic human dignity," Noah began, his voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "I lost everything, my job, my home, nearly my son, but I also gained something invaluable, the knowledge that doing the right thing is always worth it, even when it costs you everything." He found Eva in the audience, sitting with the other board members, smiling proudly. "Someone once told me that sometimes the universe rewards good people. That kindness eventually wins. I'm living proof that it's true, but only because there are people like Eva Martinez who choose to be the instrument of that reward." The audience applauded, but Noah wasn't finished. The Martinez Industries Community Dignity Initiative has now partnered with over 200 businesses across the country. We've trained thousands of employees on inclusive customer service. We've provided microloans to help homeless individuals start their own businesses. We've proven that treating people with respect isn't just morally right, it's good business. He paused, looking at Micah, who gave him a thumbs up. "But most importantly, we've shown that one small act of kindness can change everything. That choosing compassion over convenience, integrity over profit, love over fear, that these choices matter. They ripple outward in ways we can't imagine. After the gala, Noah and Micah drove home to their new house. Nothing fancy, but warm and safe, and theirs. As Noah tucked his son into bed, Micah looked up at him with serious eyes. "Dad, why did that lady pretend to be homeless when she was really rich?" Noah considered the question carefully, because she wanted to see if there were still people who would be kind to someone just because it was the right thing to do, not because they might get something in return. "And you were kind to her?" "I tried to be. That's why good things happen to us." "What do you think, buddy? Do you think being kind makes good things happen?" Micah nodded confidently. "I think being kind is the good thing that happens. Everything else is just extra." Noah smiled, marveling at his son's wisdom. "You're absolutely right. Being kind is always the right choice, no matter what happens after." As he turned off the light, Micah called out one more time, "Dad, I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of you too, Micah. Every single day." 6 years later, Noah stood in the same courthouse where he'd nearly lost his son, but this time he was there as the keynote speaker for the State Bar Association's conference on family law and social justice. Micah, now 13 and completely healthy, sat in the front row next to Eva, who had become not just Noah's boss, but one of their closest friends. "The law is supposed to protect the vulnerable," Noah told the audience of lawyers and judges. "But too often we mistake poverty for neglect, hardship for inadequacy. We forget that love and dedication can't be measured in bank statements or credit scores." Judge Williams, who had ruled in their favor all those years ago, approached him after his speech. "You know, that case changed how I look at custody disputes," she said. "I remember thinking that if more parents loved their children the way you love yours, we'd have far fewer problems in family court." "Thank you, Your Honor. That means everything to me." "How is Micah doing?" Noah's smile lit up his entire face. "He's incredible. Straight A's. Starting high school next year, wants to be a doctor so he can help other kids who are going through what he went through. He volunteers at the children's hospital, reads to the younger patients. And Ashley, she kept her promise. It took time, but she's been a real mother to Micah for the past 5 years. She and Marcus even started a foundation that helps families dealing with childhood cancer. People can change. I learned that too." That evening at the family dinner they shared every Sunday, Noah looked around the table at the people who mattered most to him. Micah, animated and healthy, telling stories about his volunteer work. Eva, who had become the grandmother Micah had never had. Ashley and Marcus, who had indeed transformed themselves into the parents Micah deserved. Mrs. Chen, their old neighbor, who now lived in the guest house and still made the best soup in the world. "Dad," Micah said suddenly, "tell the story about the restaurant. You've heard that story 100 times, but I like it. It's about how one small choice changed everything." So Noah told the story again, about a night when he chose kindness over security, dignity over profit, love over fear. About how that choice led to losing everything and gaining more than he'd ever dreamed possible. If this story moved you, if you believe that kindness should always win in the end, I need you to do 3 things right now. First, smash that like button if you believe that treating everyone with dignity isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Every like tells YouTube that stories about compassion and courage matter. Second, subscribe and ring that notification bell, because we're building a community of people who refuse to accept that the world has to be cold and uncaring. We're proving that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they choose kindness over convenience. Third, and this is the most important part, share this story, not just on social media, but in real life. Tell it to your family, your friends, your co-workers, because the world needs more Noah Martinez's and Eva Martinez's. The world needs more people People stand up for strangers, who will choose integrity over profit, who will fight for what's right, even when it costs them everything. But here's what I really want you to do. I want you to be the kindness someone needs today. Look around you. See the people who are struggling, who are invisible, who are judged by their circumstances instead of their character. Be the person who treats them with dignity. Be the person who sees their humanity. Be the person who chooses compassion, because here's the truth. Every single one of us has the power to be the miracle in someone else's story. Every single one of us can choose to lift people up instead of tear them down. Every single one of us can make the world a little bit better by seeing the good in others and helping them see it in themselves. Drop a comment below and tell me about a time when someone's kindness changed your life, or when your kindness changed someone else's. Let's fill this comment section with proof that good people still exist, that compassion still matters, that love still wins.